once you retire, you can't come back. So because you're injured. So it's like, if this don't work, I'll have this money coming in, but I got to find something else to do. I've given 12 years of my life to this. This is what I know. And law enforcement is one of those careers that it's hard to get it out your system when you leave it. That's why police officers wind up coming back. They migrate back. So yeah, my faith in God was strong. So I really had to rely on, it has to work or it has to work.
It has to work or it has to work. Welcome to another episode of the Work and Play podcast. I'm your host, Ariel, and if my voice seems a little bit down, it's because I've been playing with Mr. Damian Burris in here. So we had a really good time today. I'm really excited to interview you and get into your story.
My pleasure.
We gotta take this opportunity and make it count for our people.
Right. Absolutely.
I really enjoy getting to know you. So without further ado, would you please take it away and introduce yourself? How do you introduce yourself on a regular basis?
I'm Damian Burris, honestly.
Damian Burris.
Yep.
How humble.
Yeah, for real. Now, when I get into spaces where, like networking, I'll say, hey, what I do. But it's usually I'm Damian Burris. I'm in real estate.
Got you. Okay, so you're in real estate. And one of the things that I have gravitated towards is a lot of your sermons, shall we say, right? So since we've gotten a chance to meet through like just content creation boot camp and like in different circles, you have been constantly pouring into our community from a financial literacy perspective, all while you're doing your own business on the side. And I think that's what a lot of us, aspiring entrepreneurs, aspire to do, continue to run their business and pour into our community. So you also do that. So how about you introduce yourself a little bit from the aspect of your purpose and how you've recognized it so far, and why it is that you go out and share your financial literacy and even life literacy tips. Like, what is it that drives you to do that?
So I started this company in 2017 called My Pulpit is Different. And it's simply, I was raised in the church, and I believe that all of us have a gift to minister or an assignment to minister. But sometimes in a religious platform, we think that means I have to have a clergy, a cross around my neck, and I have to be on a raised, elevated platform to do that. So My Pulpit is Different allows you to be able to do it on a podcast, in a grocery store, in the barbershop, wherever you are. Because I think the ministry of helping people is what Christ exemplified, and it's what we're commanded to do.
Yeah, no, I understand. I had a friend of mine who literally, like, figuratively and literally was kind of called to go minister, and he didn't necessarily want to take that call. And so I know a lot of people resonate with like having to see someone still share the word and be an evangelist, so to speak, but not necessarily look like the traditional, biblical sense of like what a pastor or a minister would look like. So when did you get the inclination that you had a word to share?
Wow. I would have to say around the end of 2016, the start of 2017, I was on a live one day and I blurted it out. I said, well, because my pulpit is different. When I got off live, one of my staff called me. She said, do you realize what you said? And I was like, no. She was like, my pulpit is different. That sums up what we need to be doing. And it just kind of hit from there. So that's when I realized that I had something, I call it H.E.L.P, H.E.L.P, honoring every level of people. So from indigent to millionaire to whomever you are, I think there's something that I offer to everybody. So yeah.
And so from that moment on, you created an entire business and spoke your truth. Now, anyone looking at you, just meeting you off the top, it's like, oh my God, like you're this big energy personality, and you have wisdom to drop no matter who you speak to. And you're very humble, by the way, like super humble. But if you guys get a chance to like meet this man, it's like larger than life, like energy. Great. When you have the mic, you know exactly what to do with it, but you also like are very humble in like spirit. So like, let's take it all the way back, right? All the way back, your journey. When you were growing up, because a lot of times people get the calling very, very, very early. Like we already know, oh, that boy is going to be a pastor, right? And then we groom them early on. Were you the type of kid who was like groomed to like speak to others? What type of kid were you?
No, I was an introvert. I still am, honestly. What I was a giver. My mom said you remember the donuts that come in like 6 in a row, they're powdered, whatever. Yeah. So it was 5 of my friends, and we were outside, and I walked outside with donuts. And she said I opened it, and I started passing them out to everybody until I had none left. And I turned around and told her, I don't have any more donuts. She said, that's okay, I got another pack for you. Most kids don't share like that. They have to, be told, you need to share that, right? And then they begrudgingly give it. But she said from the time I was 4 or 5 years old, I was a giver. So I think that is where my grooming probably came from, or what you can say at an early age I did without having to be told.
Got you. Yeah. So early on, your mom spotted this in you. And then when it comes to like, childbearing, a lot of times we're raised to be a certain thing. From that point, were you like, was that part of you cultivated in any specific way? Or like, what was it like for you growing up when it comes to like the way you were raised? Were they like, oh, we're gonna be like, he's a caring kid, so we're gonna make him like, I can't even imagine like what your mom might say, like, let's get you into, but like, was there any intentional development in like any specific skill set in yours? No, I had a rough childhood. So it was more so, I think that was a God-given instinct that was placed inside of me for who I am and what I do now. But no, there was nothing that I was into. My mom had me from a married man, so she had me at 19 years old. So it was more survival and trying to understand how to get through life. Her being young, fresh out of high school, having a child, it was more so surviving. And I think just a lot of experiences in life, just kind of over time, cultivated who and what I am now. As a person growing up, you said a rough childhood and learning that you're a giver. Did you learn that was one of the skills that kind of helped you through your childhood? Because oftentimes when I have conversations with people who have like experienced like a rough childhood in any form, whether they were bullied, they lived in the hood, the good part about them that they learn, like I'm a giver. They're like, okay, well, I'm gonna learn how to give to the bully so that the bully don't beat me up, or I'm gonna learn how to give here so that I know I can get free food, whatever it is. What did you know how to leverage that skill for your good, even though you say you grew up in a struggle?
No. I talked too much as a kid, so I always got in trouble for that. But I didn't know how to leverage it until recently. No, it was, I wasn't in tune to what I do now, probably honestly, until about 26.
Got you.
Yeah. Everything was just trying to survive, trying to understand and learn how or what was happening. I had a lot of why questions. Why did we have to be born poor? Why don't I know my father? Why do I see my mom struggling? Why this? Why do we move so much? So I had a lot of questions of why. So a lot of normal childhood stuff that you would see a kid normally go through, I didn't go through because I had so many questions of why. However, I do now understand why that happens. I didn't get the why until later.
Isn't that always how it works? It's for me, like there's some things that I'm still like, but what I realize is while we characterize our childhood with like the things that we didn't know and of course the struggle, you wouldn't be here if it weren't for a certain mindset. So for you growing up, what was that, if you can look back at it, right? Like when hindsight is 20/20, what was that thing that kept you making decisions to move forward in a productive direction?
My mom was crazy. That's the first thing.
Gotcha.
And my religious upbringing, my spiritual upbringing played a major part in why I didn't gravitate to the streets or why I didn't gravitate to certain things. She ruled with the iron fist, and I was in church too much to do anything. But yeah, so that was, if I could honestly say, that was it. She just ruled, and yeah, she was crazy.
So even though you were surviving, Mom still provided that structure and that discipline.
Absolutely, she did not play.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're understanding like a little bit about like how you made your decisions. What was it that interested you? Well, at this age, what were you more so interested in, like actively interested in? Because
I started playing piano at 5.
Oh, for those of you guys who don't know, there's a piano in here. When you came in here, you know, you sat down, and a lot of times I like, if you take to the piano, I'll come over and I'll sing a little something, you know. But obviously, I didn't hear you like tickle the keys a little bit. So you have that musical bone in you.
Yep. When you grow up, church is the epicenter for Black people. So growing up, you either preached, sing, or played. Or or member, of course, but the duties in that time frame, and as a kid, still today, one of the largest attractions to young people is instruments in the church. So I fell into that category where I was interested in the music and the instruments of the church. So started playing piano at 5. So I was interested in music, all my life, and still love it to this day.
Were there ever conversations where you were like potentially gonna be a pastor, or did you ever get like youth? You know how like people do like youth sermons, and they're like, "Okay, go on, baby."
No, singing was what I did always. My dad's a singer, and my mom's side of the family are singers. But I preached at the age of 25.
Really? How were you called to do that?
It was something that I always knew that I would do after a certain time frame. It wasn't like 5 or 6, but yeah, it was there. It was instilled. My mom instilled the word in me. I knew the word more than I knew the Pledge of Allegiance. So it was just something that was ingrained in me. So
you're 26 years old. You've been raised to be in the church. You have this giving bone in your body, and you're musically inclined. You're asked to give a sermon. And what was your sermon about?
My initial sermon, I preached from Job, and it was entitled "Life After the Splash."
Life after the splash.
Right.
Please break it down for me.
Of course, in the Bible, Job had an assignment. He was called to give order to the people of Nineveh, a people that had actually killed his ancestors. And God told him to go to Nineveh to give a word. He got reluctant about it because he knew God was forgiving. And he said, if I give this word of destruction, you're just going to forgive them and still bring them out. So I don't like them because they killed my people. So I'm not going to tell this. I'm going to get on a boat, go to Tarshish, and the ship, the storm came and all that good stuff.
And they had to throw him off.
Throw him overboard. God created a fish, had Jonah in the belly of the fish for 3 days. The things tied around his neck that was in the fish, and finally, after the struggle, we eisegete. He spit him out on dry land. After Jonah got up, he ran and did the job for God. So it was about life after the splash. After you're tired of running from God, after you're tired of being disobedient, there's still an assignment for you to do. So that's what I preached at 26.
So here's the thing. I'm not as religious, but I love the story of Job. One of the things that I love about that story so much is like when he got onto the boat trying to run away from his assignment. Everybody on the boat is like, the only thing,
you gotta go.
You gotta go. You are ruining this experience for us, so we're gonna have to let you go. And what it really taught me was sometimes you have to like throw off the people who are like, messing up your energy, right? Who are literally wreaking havoc in your life. You gotta throw Job off.
You got to.
And then also, when you finally take the heed and listen to like the calling, then you start to see that everything is in alignment.
Right.
So I really love that.
Yeah.
For you, you're 26 years old though.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know if I had my Job moment until I was a little bit older. What was your Job moment?
That initial sermon. Because I ran for a long time. I knew 8 years prior to that I was supposed to do it, but I ran and didn't want to do it and didn't want to do it.
Got you. Are you now like fulfilling this, like preaching from the pulpit? Is it now a relief that you get a chance to do it in this way, or do you feel like?
Yeah, it is. I don't necessarily do it as much from the pulpit as I do from the pulpit being everyday life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an incredible relief. I believe that I'm absolutely doing exactly what I was created to do.
Yeah, and you do it really well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's get into a little bit like of the career. So you were 26. And you were preaching from the pulpit, like the literal pulpit.
Right.
What was like your decision of like getting a job? When was the first job you ever had?
Wow, I was 15 years old.
You've been working since 15? Since
15. So when you're in a single parent home and you're a son, naturally you want to help mom take care of the bills. So my first job was Food Line. I was a bag boy, and bag boys, we stock, we mop, we bag grocery, we take buggies in and out. So I did all that at 15.
Got you. Did all that at 15. So working through high school. Would you say like you were bringing in what's the word? Sufficient income to like pay the bills, or were you just kind of supplementing, mom's bills? Do you feel like you had to like take the lead in the household?
That coupled with child support. So those were two entities. Yeah. I actually flunked out of high school. I didn't graduate. I had to go to adult ed because my last year I was such a great worker. And I might get Food Line in trouble, I was working till 1 o'clock in the morning and then getting home by maybe 1:45, had school, and my first class, my 12th grade year, was English. So I slept because I was tired. So
I think you'll be fine. The child hours is different now.
So I failed, and I was upset. I failed with a 69.4. So 0.6 of a point. You couldn't. So yeah, so I had to go to summer school and wound up completing that and got my G.E.D. Yeah.
When you think about like the education that you got, what subject did you apply yourself most to?
Lunch. I'm kidding. Honestly, chorus GT.
Say it again.
Chorus.
Chorus GT.
Chorus, yeah.
You got a little voice on you too? Listen, we could have had a whole karaoke session. I'm all hoarse and things, but we could have had a whole duet.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are hidden talents in there? Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely.
Okay, I got you.
Absolutely.
I got you. Okay.
I'm a church boy, so yeah, of course.
Multi-talented.
Right.
Multi-talented. Okay. So for you, it was chorus. And I'm really trying to understand, like, how did you decide you were going to, like, what was your first job? Or, like, how did you decide what you were going to do for life? Because as of right now, a lot of your story is about, like, necessity. Religion and spirituality is a necessity for the black community. Right. And then you have your Food Line, and I'm sure you've had other jobs, for necessity.
Plenty of jobs in between. My first real job, my mom, I've always seen my mom work plant life. Plant life was big in South Carolina, like manufacturing plants, which is what she begged me not to go into. And that was my first real job. I worked for a company called Sapaco. They packaged the Army food, the MREs. But I didn't have, that was the good job. I was the cleaner. I was on the cleanup crew. So I wore fishing boots, a leather apron, and a hairnet. And I had a water hose that was like 120 degrees. You had gloves on, and you had to clean the pots and sterilize the pots and all the parts that they use to cook the food in. There were pots in here that wouldn't even fit in this room because they was putting out so much product for the military, right? So I was in charge of disinfecting and cleaning that because it was a 24-hour plant. Well, they were shut down for 4 hours. We had to clean the entire plant, wash all the dishes, and then the first and the second shift would just repeat. So that was my first real job. Yeah. And that summer I realized I can't do this.
Got you.
Yeah, I can't do this for the rest of my life.
What was the worst part about that?
going home drenched every night, sores on your hand for holding 120 degree water hose, and just looking like I worked at a wharf.
Yeah. I remember when like a lot of times when we are in those like manual labor type jobs, the goal is to like go work in AC.
Yes.
To work at somebody's computer.
QC, quality control. Like upstairs, they held the package up. It looks good, and then they write off on the whole package and chill. I'm like, yeah, that's the perfect job.
Yeah. So in this moment, and I know we talk about career transitions and life transitions all the time. But I'm really big on running towards something rather running like from something. So while you realize like this manual labor, like the way that it's treating your body is not working, what are you saying to yourself, I want to do next? Or are you just like, I can't do this anymore?
I've always had a desire to be in law enforcement. My dad was in law enforcement. My brother was in law enforcement. So that was always something that looked very enticing to me. Seeing my dad in uniform, seeing my brother in uniform carrying a gun, that just looked like something I wanted to do. So after that, I enrolled in a community college and started studying criminal justice. Okay. And was tutoring math and as a work study to have money during the college time, which I didn't stay on campus, just a work study that, I was go off campus and go to the elementary school and tutor, read books to and do all that. And then the major of the sheriff's office, him and my dad worked the prison together. So I went to him and, told him what I was doing. He said, come by the office tomorrow. So I got hired on as a corrections officer and did that for 8 months and then got hired on as a police officer.
So you did 8 months. Okay, got you. So it wasn't that long, but and corrections is were you in the prison or were you jail. Like okay,
county
got you. Because I was thinking probation at first. County jail. County jail. Got you.
Because in most places the sheriff runs the county jail as well.
I got you. Okay. What was that like to be a black man? You know what I mean? On
the other side of the bar.
Absolutely.
It was different. That's what my dad did. My dad did actually prison corrections for 27 years. So yeah, it was different. Very different behind the bars. You kind of don't get respected because you're the Uncle Tom. So, but yeah, it was different. But I was grateful every day because, after the 12 hours, I got a chance to go home.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. The top 3 responses that I get when I ask, why do you want to leave corporate America, are that you want financial freedom, you want to own your own time, and you want to build a legacy for this generation and generations to come. Now, this is not a solo job. In order to transition from your 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship, it's going to take community and it's going to take resources. And I've created the community of pioneers who are going to wrap around you and help you make that transition successfully. So if you're interested in leaving your job, go ahead and click that information below. Let's get into the community and let's transition from your 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship successfully. Now let's get back to the episode. Did you feel like you were an Uncle Tom?
To some degree, yeah. Because I mean, when you are there in it, it's like, I really have to govern my people, or not be harsh, but stick to the rules. So yeah, when I first got there, but you later learn that that's just a tactic for them to get what they want, and you start bringing stuff in you shouldn't be bringing in. But no, I quickly learned that I wasn't.
Just got it.
Right.
Yeah.
I quickly learned that I wasn't Uncle Tom. Yeah, it was just decisions that they made.
You quickly learned that you weren't an Uncle Tom, and it was the decisions that they made that put them there. Right. I feel you on that. And one of the things that I was thinking about is your purpose, as we see it now, is like changing people's lives and like giving a word in a way that we can receive it as millennials. Would you say millennials is essentially your target?
Absolutely.
And I think that the way you talk about the Bible and the way you talk about education really hits. At any point as a correction officer, did you feel like I can help them?
As a correction officer, no, because it was short-lived.
Yeah,
it was 8 months. No, I was trying to get in and get out. What I was there's 3 words that they teach you in corrections: firm, fair, and consistent. And those are the people that the inmates and the convicts respect. So when you're firm, fair, and consistent, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. So I think that was, even though they're locked up, something my police chief says: you have the right to take somebody's freedom, but not their dignity. So that always stuck with me.
You have the right to take someone's freedom, but not their dignity.
Right.
That's such a big thing to unpack.
It is. It really is.
So you 8 months in corrections, but that mentality kind of goes into like the police force, right?
Because we're an extension of that law too.
Absolutely. And I never heard it put that way, like you have the right to take someone's freedom but not their dignity. And the dignity part sounds very humanistic, right? You're like, yeah, like, you know.
Right.
But what does it do to a man who believes that he has the right to take someone's freedom?
In the wrong hands, it can be very deadly. It does. So what does it do to the police officer or to the
For the police officer, for you specifically, and because that's power, right? And not to be this big macro, like, you know, police and power. It's more like for you to be given that honor, that power, to say like, okay, you have the power to, or the right to take someone's freedom, but not their dignity. What did that level of like authority do to your personality, do to the way that you led as a leader?
I always reflect it back to the Constitution. It's a borrowed power. The Constitution starts with we the people. So the power for me to take another person's freedom was voted upon by people years ago. So the power really rests with the people. So law enforcement is really just a customer service entity. Now, if you need to go to jail, I customer servicely take you. Right? In a clean car, air conditioned, all that good stuff. So when you look at it as we're serving the community, which is what community oriented policing is we're serving the community. We're partnering with you because we the people have granted you the power. So I never looked at it as I have authority over you. It's that this is the order, this is the way it happens. I'm not going to disrespect your dignity and you being a human. But this is what happens when you violate these laws. So I never allowed the power to go to my head.
That's I love that. Selfishly, I love that you say that.
Right.
Because a lot of people do.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
And I wonder what that is in you that keeps you grounded. Because I've seen it too. Do you know what that is that keeps you grounded?
Man, I've been in some situations where life was less fortunate for me. So what keeps me grounded is knowing that God has the ability to take everything I have away tomorrow. I heard it said, it's not what you want to be in life, it's who you are.
It's not what you want to be in life, it's who you are.
Right. Yeah. So your possessions and all the accolades, it's about what's in the inside of a person that makes them great. You know. So I always want to stay grounded and humble because we're all representatives, I feel, of a greater power. So I can never step into his lane and act like I just have everything. This is borrowed authority from biblical to authority that we vote on. So it's not my authority. I just enforce the law. And a lot of people think they become the law when I'm just here to enforce what was already written. So the law is above me, honestly, in that aspect.
Yeah. One of the things that I really admire just sitting next to you is, and you telling your story, is your groundedness. And because a lot of corporate professionals who watch this this podcast are in their transition and they're trying to figure out, like, you know, how do I navigate this space? Corporate is, you know, politicky in a sense that like people have like unsaid power, people have like written power and navigating power, and people who wield power. Everything is you know, all over the place. But when you're not grounded, it's really easy to get caught up in who's got the power, how to get the power, what do you have to do to get it, and then take advantage of it, all of that. You stayed in law enforcement for how long?
12 years.
12 years.
Long.
12 long years.
Long.
What kept you through? Like, I would imagine one is you being grounded for you to be able to stay 12 years. What kept you in that long? And then what was it that enticed you to leave for after 12 years?
So when I got into it to retire.
Gotcha.
So 25 years in the state of South Carolina is what you need to retire.
Okay.
So that was my goal, 25 years, and then I'll consult, you know, police officers or, you know, detectives when I get out. That was my end-all be-all goal. Well, retire, well, after my stint with that, then maybe go to some federal system like Secret Service, retire from that, and then consult. That's what I wanted to do. I got injured in the line of duty.
Gotcha. Was it a bullet wound?
No, I tore my quadricep tendon.
You running after bad boys. What you?
I fell out of a window. Going into to get a suspect, and the only way in was that window.
Okay.
And the only way out was that window.
Got it.
Because the house was boarded up, and he had been sleeping in the house. We were looking for him for something he had done. And on the way down out of the window, I came down on my knee and tore my quadricep tendon. So it ended my career. It ended your career,
but like anybody would be like, "Yo, this is for the birds."
For the birds.
Would you, if your knee was here, would you have stayed?
Absolutely. I tell people God pushed me out of that window.
Ooh.
He pushed me out the window because I would have still been there. My plight was to retire and do that. And I remember my partner called me last week and he said, "Man, I remember you telling me," his name is Rock. He said, I told him, "There's something more. I just can't put my hands on it." Like, and he would tell me all the time, "Man, you were great at this, but this is not what you're supposed to be doing." And I always felt it. You know, we settle for being great over being purposed, right? You can do 5 in popularity, but you'll do 10 in purposed. And a lot of people choose popular over being purposed. And I was good at it. I mean, I was a great interviewer. I loved talking to people. I loved getting people. I mean, it was so much to the point where my upper echelon would place wagers on me how long it took me to go get a confession and come out. Like, that's how good I was at it. But it was training. I tell people that was my collegiate experience for what I'm doing now. Because I didn't go to college. Well, I went to, tech school, but no.
I didn't realize you were an interviewer.
Oh, I was a homicide detective.
You were a homicide detective, and they put you in, like, you on the 48 hours, like 48 hours.
Every
You're
day.
the person who's, like, understanding the tactics to help someone, like, basically tell their truth.
Absolutely. So that gate, what I experienced in those, I did that for the last 6 years, that was better than any public speaking I could have ever gone to. Because getting people to incriminate themselves and feel okay with it is now what I do now. So as a homicide detective, you show up to death.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what's happening. You have to deliver some news to somebody, and then you have to put together some kind of case to help bring justice to the people that are still living. So if you take away the police jargon, that's exactly what I do now. I show up at deadly situations where people feel like they have nothing left, and then I get them to believe in that the mistakes that they made is not the end all be all. And instead of putting them in prison, I put them in purpose.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The only difference is that nirvana that you feel of just getting it off your chest is not going to lead you to go behind bars. So I actually do have to ask you a little bit about that, because like it's kind of like, how do you ever feel like, I sometimes feel like as small as somebody who has the job to put boots on your car. It's like, that's their job. You parked in the wrong lane, you got to get the boot.
Sorry.
And I'm like, I would hate for my job to be the boot man. Did you ever have to come to terms with the fact that you're using your gift, they feel relieved, and then you have to lock the door behind them?
It depends on the crime. Criminal sexual conduct, never.
Criminal sexual conduct, like rape?
More specifically to underage children.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. I have been in rooms where I had to side with, remember there was one case that I worked where, so the reason why you see police officers give food, cigarettes, and those things to criminals is because you're never going to get a confession from a person that feels bad about what they've done. So you go in and you befriend and you minimize the punishment for what they've done to get them to talk about it. So I had to go into a guy that was not really attractive, didn't have a lot of girlfriends, couldn't really get a date, and he had molested this 6-year-old. And I told him, I understand how hard it is. You got to be this, nice looking guy, this buff guy. So I understand that it was an easy target for you to go in and do this, but it's not who you are. It's the fact that the world, you didn't get dealt the right hand, genetics, you didn't have this, you wasn't the jockey in high school, and he broke down and told the truth. Now, I hated the fact that I had to sympathize with somebody that had just molested a 6-year-old. But I would have never gotten the confession out of him if I would told him, you're a POS. So you have to, go in. So to answer the question, sometimes, but not on those cases. But sometimes I was looking at them like, please don't tell me what you're about to tell me. But they do. Every single time.
Yeah, please don't tell me what you. And then you got the skills, so like
right,
you absolutely. Go in like you're the special.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I can imagine. Would you say it's more freeing now that and then also the problems that you're setting people free from. Do you ever have moments where you're like, "Ooh, if I was a cop, I would have."
Yeah, you've been done for. But but really? they tell you all the time: use it on your children, never your spouse.
Use it on your children, never
use it on your children, never your spouse. So the interviewing tactic. Yeah. So
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's so much to the point where when you get to a certain level, it's called BAU, behavior analysis, and the guy that I trained under. He was so clever. When I first started interview tactics school, it's called interrogations. There's something called kinesics, which is the body language. So your body tells me what's happening with your mind without you speaking. So he has the ability to hear tones, body language. So he told us, he said, make up a story that's truth and insert a lie, and I'll figure it out. So my time came. I said, when I was younger, me and my brother had got bikes for Christmas, and we raced, and we was trying to jump this little hill. I had just got my Huffy bike, and we jumped this hill, and I wound up bending the front of the bike. I had to get another one. He said, that story's true, but the bike wasn't a Huffy. And that's exactly the lie I put in there. And I was trying to figure out, how did you do that?
What was it?
It's just tones and reflections and kinesics. So over time, I learned that aspect. But now when I see people talking to me, I can hear the lie. So you have to turn it off when you're not in police anymore.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny because intuitively, as you were telling that story, I said Huffy.
Right.
It's funny.
Right. It sticks out when you start to think about it.
Yeah. Well, and then also like the gifts that we have, like you had formal training to hone this gift. So I'm also thinking about the purpose of you having this natural gift and having the opportunity to get this type of training to be able to spot this out for people. All to be able to like help people identify whatever lie they're telling themselves.
Because the reason why it's so easy for us in that space is because probably the most profound thing is a lie only goes through one filter, and that's the person that's telling it. So it seems right to them, but when people that hear it, that makes no sense. But because they convince themselves that it's true, but it only goes through one filter, and that's your mind. Now, in order for a big lie to work, there has to be a lot of collusion. But when it's a simple lie, it just goes through one filter. That's
a fact. That's why you gotta have homies on the side.
You gotta have homies. Like, people... if I call you and say, "Hey, where we was last night," you already know. That's collusion. So in order for somebody else to believe it, you gotta be two people.
That's a fact. Yeah. So you enjoyed your career in police department. It's really only like the, unfortunate accident of you jumping out of a building, which you're doing your job shoot, some people would say that's for the birds. That would not have stopped you if it actually didn't physically stop you. So like, is that when you started to get into real estate? Yeah.
So I had the ability to stay in, but when the doctors made me aware that they could write me out, I was like,
oh, so it really was like it's for the birds.
Oh yeah, no. I enjoyed my job, but yeah, when I found out I could retire out.
Oh, because you could still get the best of both worlds. Your goal was to stay for 25 or 20 years?
25.
25 years so that you can get the retirement. But when you realize I can get that in a shorter amount of time, it was like, oh, you don't have to take another decade of this.
I'm going to get the same thing I was going to get at 32 and only work 12 years.
I got you. Because at first I was gonna say you must have loved the like adrenaline rush, but it wasn't. You did?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But you didn't love it more than the retirement.
Not at that point in time, because my love for law enforcement shifted. I got out in the right time. I got out in 2016.
Okay.
And law enforcement is nothing like it used to be at all. Now it's just.
How is it different?
Two-sided. It was a brotherhood back then, and when the guys before me, I saw them, it was a brotherhood. Now it's very, very backstabbing because people want to get to the top so fast, so they come in and whatever they can do to tarnish your career, tarnish your name, they're doing it.
You say that it was a brotherhood, and I feel like that's some of the things that we hear about the police department even now. Like it's a brotherhood, and that's why some people won't tell on each other, and that's why some people don't go to jail for some of the things that they do. Especially like, you know, when it comes to like some of the crimes where it's white on black, right? It's like, okay, well, we're not gonna send our there's a brotherhood, right? So. But it does also make sense, you know, the new age employee who's like, I want to get to the top, and they start taking on some of that corporate mentality, like, how do I shuck and drive, like, and play the system so that I can get the accolades. So, like, how did all of that play out? The brotherhood, right? You being a black man, racism, all of that. How did that play out? Did you feel like you were protected in the city? What city were you a police officer?
Camden, South Carolina.
Got you. Did you feel like you were not necessarily exposed to like all of the necessarily racism or and mind you, like I also recognize it's a brotherhood. So it's kind of like when I'm talking to a person who's in a frat. Right. It's only so much you willing to like give. So
but no, I can talk.
Okay.
No, I wasn't. I was vocal. I was very vocal with being in. So I did narcotics as well. So with being in that, there was definitely some racist things that I saw that I was vocal about, and that probably kept me from being promoted as quickly as I should have been because I was vocal about it. But there was still a brotherhood with the people that had your six, that had your back. You know, there are people that I'm trusting my life with. If we're going to serve a high risk warrant on a person that we know has firearms, I'm trusting the dude that I'm going into this diamond with. You got my back.
I love all of the jargon. Six diamond.
Right.
But I kind of understand it. I think we watched enough police movies to get it.
Right. So there's still a brotherhood in that entity. Racism, you know, creeps its way in different places. But man, when you in a shootout and y'all pulling the trigger, you don't care what color they are at that point. You know, you want to make sure you're getting home and everybody's safe. But there's still a brotherhood inside of all the other stuff that was happening. But no, I wasn't protected. The color of my skin was still very much prevalent, and they saw it. But I wasn't the quiet type that would allow certain things to happen if my name had to be on the warrant or if I had to be the one to testify in court. I always kept a clean name. So because once you are no longer clean, they have you for the rest of your career. And there wasn't enough money in the world for me to do that for. You know, so no, the cops that get killed by drug lords and those people are the people that are dirty.
Gotcha.
So you know, you're no longer, that's when they call them the pigs. You're no longer, a representative of the law. You're just like us. You're just hiding behind the badge.
I understand.
Yeah.
The first part of your career was very, very serious. Mm-hmm. A lot of people go into real estate, because it's fun and flashy, and then they learn some skills behind it. But you went into real estate with, can you tell me the three again? Firm,
fair, consistent.
Firm, fair, consistent.
Mm-hmm.
What was it after you got injured, after you got your retirement, what was it that drew you to the real estate business?
My business partner, who I own the company with now, I just purchased my first home. And when you're home shopping, after you close, you're still home shopping because you're just in the groove of it now. So I just walked into a model home that he was sitting in, and saw him, another young black guy, introduce himself. And everybody that walked into the model home, I knew. He was like, "You would kill in real estate because you know everybody here." I was like, "Yeah, I know them. I know their parents. I know they play football at the high school." And he was like, "Man, if I had that kind of knowledge about the community, I would kill." And we kind of bonded. And so he was in my subdivision, so I would throw my hand up whenever I saw him. So if I didn't have a whole lot going on, I would stop in and check on him and just kind of talk to him. And he's like, "You ever thought about real estate?" I was like, "Nah." He would constantly ask me that question. Long story short, I wound up taking the test, got in real estate, and yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Now, when you left the police department, you said it was God who pushed you out the window, right? And then you get to be in real estate. Easy peasy. I signed I passed the test, and now I'm in real estate. How is your relationship with God developing in this transition? Because I say this because the push don't always feel like I didn't ask you to push me.
It was a faith move because even though I was retiring with money coming in every month, it was still only 54% of my salary. So I didn't have a savings. I was a regular cop, just living and spending money. And I was like, listen, if this is it, once you retire, you can't come back. So because you're injured. So I was like, if this don't work, I'll have this money coming in, but I got to find something else to do. I've given 12 years of my life to this. This is what I know. And law enforcement is one of those careers that it's hard to get it out your system when you leave it. That's why police officers wind up coming back. They migrate back. So yeah, my faith in God was strong. So I really had to rely on, it has to work or it has to work.
It has to work or it has to work. Before you walked into this building, you said you were house shopping. So before you walked into this building, real estate was nowhere on your radar?
Never. I love structure and watches. So houses and watches.
Houses and watches.
But real estate was nowhere on my mind.
Where did structures, you just said it so easily, how did you know where did the love for structures and watches come from?
I don't know. I building watch. I like building in bridges. I'm fascinated with it. Just how they are assembled, how they're suspended in the air, how they don't fall, all the ingenuity that goes in buildings.
Got you. So when you were injured, were you just kind of living daily, and you were just kind of going through, okay, let me get a house? Yep.
Yeah, well, I was in the process of getting the house before I got injured. So I got injured during the process. So it put me I had to learn how to almost walk again because that's the biggest tendon in your body. So I was down for 6 months. Yeah.
For people who don't have a lot of faith necessarily, what are some of the things that you help people understand, when it comes to you hurting your knee and you being out of a job? You said 6 months, right? Before you actually knew what you were going to do. Having a strong faith, does that mean that you never doubted what your next move was going to be?
No, doubted a whole lot. I just had a confidence that God would bring me out. It was this abstract thing that even though I couldn't see it, I just knew that it was going to work. I can remember being young where me and my mom didn't have food to eat, and out of nowhere, this car would show up with a whole bunch of food. The lights were out, and out of nowhere, a church member would come pick us up, and we stayed with them until we got our lights back on. I mean, it was just always a rescue story that happened. So I just knew that, okay, it's tough right now, but somehow it's gonna work out.
And it did so far, right?
Absolutely.
Man. So then you decide, you get your license in real estate, and you decide to start a firm. Right. Did you have a plan to build the firm?
Not one.
What was your first couple of steps then?
So agents started coming to me asking me what I was doing, because when you're really doing well in the career, and there's other people in the same career that are not doing as well, they want to pick your brain. And I started sharing with them what I was doing and what was happening, what was going on. And then I started to notice a lot of agents started coming to talk to me. Then the idea to have a brokerage kind of popped in my head, but I didn't know enough about real estate. I knew how to write a contract and how to sell, but I didn't know enough about the laws and the liability. So when I was able to get my broker's license in the state of South Carolina, you have to have 3 years of apprenticeship. So when I got to my 3 years, I applied to be a real estate instructor, because I wanted to learn everything there was to know about running a brokerage and the laws and what could get me in trouble.
Ooh, gotcha. I feel like that's when the story begins. Yep. Okay, so you decide you want to be an instructor, and I think that's actually a really boss move. I feel like that's a hack. Would you say that's, and you?
Absolutely.
So my thought, you have to tell, okay, so my thought in the hack is actually twofold. Okay. I think that it knocks away some of the confidence issues people have when they go into a new space and they don't know what they're doing. But then I also think that you're going from cop to entrepreneur, right? 9 to 5 to entrepreneur. And you get to learn the industry, like in a controlled environment. Right. And then, so kind of you have this, these training wheels as an entrepreneur before you actually jump out there. That's why I think it's a hack.
That's the whole hack.
Did I?
Absolutely.
What did I miss? Because I think that big thinkers, I think there's before you become a big thinker, you miss a lot. And I know there's a little bit that I get, but I know there's a lot that I don't get. Right. What's the part that I don't get? What is the part that, in that process of you becoming an instructor, what did you learn in the journey outside of confidence and outside of learning the game that you wouldn't have gotten if you went through that process?
But the game is probably the biggest thing, because what most realtors, they tell you, everything you learned in real estate school, I remember hearing that everything you learned in real estate school, when you get out, forget it. Because the only thing that teaches you is how to pass the test. I didn't. I actually taught it and I instructed it. And every time I have a conversation with a realtor, I would have a conversation with them from an instructor standpoint. And it was like, you just know too much. You don't even know all that. But now I'm the owner of the largest black-owned firm. So it's like, you do need to know that, because that's what gives you the ability to be an agent and to be a broker in charge. So it was the game, it was the hack that had I not gone through that, I would probably still be an agent, which is good. But, yeah.
That's dope. And for the listener's sake, when I say hack, people think hack and they think, cut the process, shorten the time, all these things, shortcuts. People think shortcut. But how long were you an instructor?
Ooh, a year.
A year. You dedicated a year to instructing and being an agent at the same time?
Yes.
So you're a practitioner, you're learning the thing, and you're teaching other practitioners how to be an agent. Right.
My goal was to teach 350 students before walking away. Nice. So I would know repetitive of how to do it, and I want to teaching over 500 students.
I love it. I love it. I'm thinking about a lot of different hacks now. Well, the reason I say hack is because getting the education that you need, you know what I mean, like under someone else's tutelage, it's expensive as an entrepreneur.
And I got paid to do it.
You get what I'm saying?
I got paid to do it. And he the guy that I worked for that owned the school, he is real estate, like walking real estate. He gave me his entire regimen of how he taught it, and it made me a monster as it pertains to that field. And it was because I knew, so I was going against people that got a license and all they ever did, which is nothing wrong, was just sell real estate. 20, 30, 40 years into the game. But me coming out, and in 2 years or 3 years after I instructed, I was telling them stuff that they were doing wrong. And they were like, no, I've been doing this for 40 years. Ma'am, I teach real estate. It's so great to say that. Like, I used to love that line. Ma'am, I teach this for a living, right? That's wrong. And then they would go and research the law and come back and say, you're right, I've been doing it wrong for 30 years.
Yeah, and successfully? Like, you can make a lot of money doing it wrong.
Absolutely.
So I suppose like people don't necessarily even see the value in doing it right until you get it. You're like, oh, and would you say there's any increase in revenue, like once you start realizing how to do it right?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was for me. I went from selling to now having 80 plus people that do it for me.
Because you understand how it works.
Right. And I'm able to teach them how it works and how to stay away from certain liabilities that our color is not really taught. We produce and we're work ants, but we're not really taught how to protect the asset in that field.
I got you. Yeah. So we know the purpose, and it's funny because we started with purpose, and usually we start with the vehicle, and then we get into purpose, but we know the purpose from the jump, from your story. So the vehicle of real estate at this moment, what's it like when you become an agent? Like for you, like what was it like for you to become an agent? And now you're interacting with people in a different way. Meaning, when you went from correctional facility to police officer, and now you're interacting with clients who are buying a home. How does that dynamic shift between you and people?
It really didn't, because everybody asked the question, how do you go from that to that? Murder, 30 years. Mortgage, 30 years.
Murder, 30 years.
Mortgage, 30 years. Same thing. You just switch the product. So
you said.
Yeah, the same sentence.
I'm gonna try to unpack it, but I don't know because here's the thing. This is it's funny, like having this conversation with you. One, you spent 10 years as an interviewer, right? And here I am interviewing you, and it's like you give me what you give me,
right?
But sometimes I'd be like, come on, Grandpa, tell me a story, right? But as you say, like mortgage 30 years, I also enjoy learning.
Right.
So this is just a quirk of mine. Mortgage 30 years, murder 30 years. I'm sitting in an interview, I sell my soul, so to speak, and through me like being able to like release and tell you my true heart's desire / demons, you sell me a 30-year trip down the road. Right? And so as a real estate agent, I'm like, I want this in a home. I want this for my family. Maybe I get a little bit personal with you. I tell you a little bit about my deep, darkest secrets. And
my financial woes and things I didn't do well.
Let's get into it. And so now, by me truly telling you what the business is, you get to sell me a 30-year mortgage.
Right.
Let's get into that part because I didn't realize. I'm glad because I wouldn't have been able to ask that.
Right.
So, what is the process of getting people to to divulge what their financial situation is?
It's very tough. You have to. That's why I love having that law enforcement background. I think that's the upper hand that I have on a lot of people is having to talk to somebody in a very dark place with murder or some crime that can send them down the road, and then having somebody that didn't have financial literacy, that's very sensitive to them, and that speaks to their manhood or how they feel about themselves, because money is very vulnerable. So when you have the ability to, hey, we all have made mistakes, but let me help you. We've all done that. And I tell people my personal story. I was homeless. I lived in a truck as a police officer. And I tell that story and I let them understand you can bounce back from it no matter what happened. And this is the reward for you going down this path and choosing to do things the right way. Yep.
So as a real estate, like, I feel like this is so much bigger than real estate agent.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because for people who are going through this, they go to a realtor and they're not able to get their home, one, because they don't feel comfortable with the agent, and then two, the agent can't help you, even, and maybe they could if they had the skill, and if they don't have the skill, then they still can't help you, even if you share that.
Right.
What was the first situation for you where you realized you had the key, you know what I mean, to like helping someone get to that level in their life?
So the loan officer that really groomed me to be a great real estate agent, because I didn't take the traditional route. Most real estate agents go hire a real estate agent to show them the ropes. I hired a mortgage lender to show me the ropes. Because I wanted to know where the problems was, why people couldn't get houses. 80% is the loan. So when I figure out how to structure or present a person to a bank or to the lender, then I solve 80% of my problems. The other 20 is the contract. Okay, I can learn that. You can show a person how to write a contract. You can show a person how to tell hickory from oak. You can show them granite from quartz. But how do you get them to have a decent qualifying profile to the bank?
I'm extremely passionate about helping corporate professionals transition into entrepreneurship. So I had to share the one thing, the number one thing that helped me develop as an entrepreneur, and that's the morning meetup. I joined the morning meetup specifically for the structure because I'm leaving corporate America, so I'm used to those morning huddles. We got our sales, we know what our goals are, and we get our day started. So I was missing that for 2 years before I even found the morning meetup. Now, the second thing that I really benefited from was the revenue generating activities was not necessarily a thing before 2021. Now, I had my LLC, I had my website, I had a few clients here and there, but the momentum really took off as soon as I got around like-minded individuals and people who really knew the struggles that I was already dealing with, that I could get over my fear of sales and communicating my value and putting myself out there on social media. The friends that I've developed, the mentors and the mentees that I've created relationships with, everything has really created this environment for us to thrive as entrepreneurs. So if you want to develop as an entrepreneur, you're leaving corporate America and you're trying to figure out how do I get my footing in entrepreneurship, then the morning meetup will definitely be a game changer for you. You can learn with us, you can grow with us. And I didn't even mention that we have a book club. Join us in the community. Let's get started today. You will not regret it.
And that's who I employed, the lender. So he showed me how to fix credit hacks, what the bank is looking for, the difference between perfect credit and approving credit. So once I learned that, now I have to learn how to convey this message to the consumer where they're going to be okay. So what I started doing was selling hope. No matter what I saw on the screen, my face never changed. So when I pulled your credit through my software program or through the program we used, if I saw something that would really take 2 years, oh, I can get that done. Now, I had a slogan, there's nobody that's not pre-approved. It's just how much are you willing to commit.
In terms of the 2 years, you mean?
Right. So that was my slogan. I did a commercial, cheesy commercial. It was so cheesy. It was, I may not be the chauffeur, but I can get you home. This little white cheesy limousine rolled by the screen. It was so cheesy, right? but it got the job done. But what I would tell them, everybody is pre-approved. It's just how much are you willing to do the work. So that's what I would sell. I would sell hope, because 9 out of 10, they had already been to another realtor that told them no. But I was the last stop and the yes. So whatever I saw on the screen, I didn't allow it to change my face or my actions. I can get it done. Here's what it's going to take for you to get it done.
And that is time,
attention
work,
to detail, budgeting, planning, mindset shifting. A lot of what I did was telling people they deserve the house.
Got you.
Because a lot of people didn't think they deserved the house. And when there was a person that the bank told them come back in 2 years, I had them in a home in 91 days.
91 days?
That's when I realized I had the mojo.
Okay, talk about mojo.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, at first I was thinking, okay, so you work with the client for 2 years and you get them to a point where they're ready to qualify for a loan. But what you do is take what they would have to do in 2 years and break it down to 91 days. And they have to be diligent about their personal growth. It sounds like it doesn't even sound like it sounds like they get a home, but they get a new person.
Right. That's exactly what happened. And I started focusing on changing people's perception about what they deserve instead of how many closings I could go to. So what happened was, I started a company called Money Smart University. And Money Smart University was an entity that showed you how to budget, showed you credit, and showed you what the banks were looking for. So I stopped trying to sell houses, and I said, I'm gonna build my pipeline of people that understand financial literacy. And when I looked up in 6 months, I couldn't even take on new clients because I was going to so many closings.
Jeez.
And that's what I did.
Taking your eye off David talks about this all the time, taking your eye off of the goal, not looking at the shot clock all the time.
Right.
And focusing on the process.
Right.
And your process was helping people get to that financial freedom.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a technical question?
Sure.
What are the banks looking for?
So there's guidelines. So when a bank is looking at a person to qualify, they're looking at debt to income. They're looking at credit score, and they're looking at how much you make, so which is debt to income. The third thing is how well you've handled your bills.
Okay. So
they're just looking for a person that meets those criteria. To be honest with you, credit scores is not what banks are looking for. There's no loan that demands a credit score. That's what the investors put on to make it safe to lend and to reduce the risk.
Okay.
So if I'm a multi-billionaire and I want to use my money to fund loans, these are the criteria I'm going to loan on. 620, been on the job 2 years, has this amount of money in the bank, filed their taxes, and made this much. So honestly, technically, all loans are available to all people, but the people that hold the money put what they call compounding overlays on the money to make the risk safer. Got you.
So they pad the requirements. So then I bought my home when I was 25.
Unheard of in our field most of the time.
Really? Because I was going to ask you about the type of client that you work with. I think so, and I'm trying to understand like where the gap might be. So I want to ask you where the gap is, and I'm thinking about my own experience. So I, honestly and truly, that's where the question is coming from. I had a finance degree, but I don't think I knew very much about finance, honestly and truly, when I graduated. And I had a corporate job, right? So I'm making 70, probably was 65 at the time. Credit score was good. And so the process of me getting a home, I don't know if I learned anything because it was so easy. I honestly, this is an opinion, and I'll ask a question, but I honestly think that a person who has to go through the hoops learns a little bit more along the process and becomes a better person through like getting that, which is just something I'm noticing in this conversation. What is the gap that a lot of people that you work with have to go through to make some of those requirements, right? Do you get what I'm saying? Like
to the financial literacy that they have to go through?
Yeah, like when they come, is it like a trifecta? My credit score is not good, debt to income risk. 98% or have all three?
No, have to go through financial literacy before they can even buy.
And with the financial literacy, do most people need all three, or do you find that all three?
All three. All three.
Is income ever like not the issue, and then you just gotta like get these, because like, do you have high earners who have all these other like measures messed up?
Now you do, because everybody got 20,833 in the last 24 months.
Oh.
Right. But no, before it was simply because inflation kept going up, prices of houses kept increasing. The biggest thing that repeats itself is credit. Okay. The biggest thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's credit, because you make the money. It's just that a lot of times they've abused the credit to the point that, Yeah.
So you got to teach them.
You do.
Okay. And so now that you're teaching it, you've been doing this for how long would you say real estate at this point?
7 years.
7 years. And now you've seen how many like transformations would you say?
Transformations?
Yeah, clients, like closings.
Oh God. In 7 years?
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Really? You don't keep track of that number?
Oh, company numbers. Yeah. Well over 2,000.
2,000 people transforming their lives. And would you say all of them kind of require a certain level of like financial literacy, or would you say like there's a percentage that just kind of walk in and walk out?
To be honest with you, the younger generation is needing less and less help. They're preserving their credit, they're saving money, and they're finding that good job early.
Yeah.
Where my parents and beyond, they didn't use credit for anything. They had a lot of title loans on their credit, so their credit was kind of already ruined. So yeah.
Would you say that that's why you feel like why you now have more time to teach more about like purpose and lessons and Job and things like that, as opposed to spending a lot of your time with the financial literacy? Because again, earlier we said your target is like millennials, right? And if more of us are starting to learn how to spend our money, now we need to learn how to think about living our lives. Is that how you see it?
Absolutely. And learning to invest beyond the house. But yeah.
Learn how to invest beyond the house. What do you mean by that?
So investment is a great thing. The house is a great thing. But then what else is out there that you can invest in? So yeah, teaching that aspect. So yeah.
So like, what are you doing in this next phase of your life where, people need the education? Are you still going to be a practitioner?
Absolutely.
So like, what's your idea around financial literacy and how you want to go about doing it now?
So I want to, one of my goals is, and I want to start in my hometown and then where I actually have the business, is to create a curriculum for high schools to where they will have it as an elective. And then we sponsor scholarships for 10 to 20 students a year, pay for them to go, and then immediately they have job placement with my company anywhere in the state. So we'll offer that. So I think that will definitely be a perpetuating thing that they do in the school system, because they're not teaching finances. So yeah, have that in there for them. And if they want to have a real estate career, they can, but we're getting them the budgeting, the financial literacy, and all the other stuff that comes with it, credit. So yeah, that's one way. And then, one-on-ones, group sessions that I still do now.
You said that they're not teaching financial literacy. Buying a home is probably, do they still say this in the financial literacy space, but buying a home is one of your biggest purchases you'll ever make in your life?
Absolutely.
Even for a multimillionaire, would you say like buying your home is still one of the biggest purchases you'll make in your life?
I would say yeah, because it not only because it's the only investment you can live in. It's the only investment you can live in. So it provides physical shelter and financial shelter. So it's still the biggest investment you're ever gonna make.
I got it. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Ariel from the Work and Play podcast. If you're getting any value from this channel, and I mean anything from the tutorials to the podcast to the random videos that you see on this channel, then I just ask that you do one thing. Please subscribe. Subscribe and share this to anyone that you think this resonates with, and drop a comment below so I know what other things that you want to see next. Now let's get back to the episode.
So are you offering a specific, do you have coaching, one-on-one coaching, group coaching? Do you have a specific program that people can tap into?
I do.
What's your program called?
My Pulpit is Different Community. So that's my community that I have, but the actual program is just a business coaching program. It's called Replicate It. So the instructions was to make disciples. Right?
Yes.
So it's not just disciples that dissect the word of God, but I think they're business disciples. Jesus turned the world upside down with 12 businessmen, tax collector, fishermen, physicians, all those people. So I want to replicate what I've done in the business world, and then show people how to do what it is that I do. So I offer Replicate It, and it's a 3-day course that I show you how to structure the business, how to get it off the ground, and how to make it work. And the key component is to not try to get to 30,000 feet, but get to or stay at 5,000 feet, because my biggest mistake was growing too fast. So enjoy the space at 5,000 feet. So when you get to 30,000, you don't have to descend.
I love it. I love it. So that the course is actually available. And for the listeners, I'm just going to ask, like, for those of my listeners who are trying to, go into real estate, I think this is a safer way to go about it. I learned a little bit about the wealth triangle and how, like, people who go from corporate, they just want to jump into buying their first home. And they want to get that first, investment property, and they kind of figure it out along their way. But it sounds like this would be a really good way to, like, get into the industry, learn in a foundational type way, and then also the community. You said that's the community. The community is essentially like where we learn the most. We've learned a lot about communities being in the same community with each other. So, like, could we offer this to, like, my community, my listeners?
Absolutely.
Like, okay, gotcha. So there will be a link in the. Sometimes I forget. I swear, sometimes I forget. But then again, I remember that we can put a link at the bottom. We can. Want to do like a code or like a work and play?
Yeah, we'll put. Let's do. Give me the code. We'll make it work.
Okay, we'll do work and play.
Okay.
And so those of you guys who are interested in making a transition into entrepreneurship, but real estate specifically. You're looking at houses, you're trying to invest in these places, do it safely and do it with a mentor. Like, we've had people on the podcast who talk to, like, the intricacies of going into real estate on your own and getting that license and then having to find a mentor and then trying to figure it out on your own. And while the hack is not to, like, circumvent this process of finding the people that you need, the hack is to learn from the people who know what they're talking about. Now, do you specifically, are you worldwide? I'm not worldwide, but national and worldwide, or do you focus on your city only? Folks in Atlanta?
Oh, no.
Where are your students?
All over. I have, in my community is all over, like, because, I was in my state, and then, everybody else, you grasp the attention quick in my field when you're black, because there's not a lot of us that's doing it on a professional level like that. Think about it. In the last 7 years, could you name one black realtor in the last 7 years? Or 10 years ago, but now
on a large scale, no.
They're by the groves. So I was the first person in my state to put myself on the billboard, and after that, now it just opened the floodgates. So people, when I first started, after my 3rd year, I was getting calls from people from Texas that was watching me, calls from people from DC, from North Carolina that was watching me and saying, you're inspiring what I'm doing, and I just got into real estate, and what are you doing, and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it reaches.
Amazing. I think it's really dope that you're creating an ecosystem for people to come into and be able to, like, be supported in this space. Because I hate to hear, like, people who make their exit strategy real estate, and they don't do their due diligence like you did, right?
They don't.
And I think that there is something to say about getting your own bumps and bruises, but I also think that there's something to say about learning from other people's bumps and bruises.
Absolutely.
So I would love to just offer that to my community. And I really enjoy, like, talking to you.
Thank you.
It's been super, like, calming. You know what I mean? Like, the conversation is very intentional. You're very, like, precise in the way you answer, and you're super serious. But the fact that, like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna try it again, but I know I remember firm and I remember fair. The first one is firm, fair, consistent. With you having these values, right? And this is the Work and Play podcast.
Got it.
What does play look like for you?
So I love boating.
Boating.
Oh, I love it. Like,
that's such a calm sport.
But it's so relaxing. Yeah, I love boating. Like, I was watching the temperature on the ride up here. It's gonna be 79, 80, and 82 Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Ooh. So they're not gonna see me. Like, they're not gonna see me. Like,
that's play.
Yeah, that's play. 4-wheeling road trips. Yeah. So yeah, just yeah.
I got you. Do you believe that? Some people say work hard, play hard, right? Well, I believe that my goal is somehow to mesh the work and play at the same time. Do you believe that those two can live, cohabitate in the same space, or Absolutely. Do you like to delineate work and play?
No, I love that word. Absolutely. No, you have to have balance.
Yeah.
You have to have balance. Yeah. So I'm just learning to play. Honestly, it wasn't something. And vacationing. I put about 6 months ago. I put 3 places in the hat. It was London, Dubai, and Hawaii, and it was a Tuesday. And I had to be in one of those places by Friday. So I put it in the hat, and I picked Hawaii. So I flew to Hawaii just on a whim.
I love that.
Yeah. Yep. So
I really love that.
Beautiful over there.
It is nice. Which part of Hawaii?
Honolulu. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Waikiki Beach, the Big Island.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's just enough to dip your toe in it. But when you start doing, I haven't gone to any of the secluded islands, but like when you start doing the secluded islands, then you get to see other things. Honolulu is kind of like the city, but you still get the beautiful beach.
It's so
weather.
Nice. It's so nice. So I'm going to Maldives this year. So I'm excited about that.
Have fun.
Yeah.
I want you to enjoy yourself.
Right.
It seems like you don't, but I have a feeling.
I'm a clown. I'm really a clown. But in the right place. Yeah. In the right place. I'm a clown.
Well, those of you guys who have watched, I think that they've enjoyed hearing your story. I certainly have.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. For those who are watching and listening, and they are on their journey. What I get from you is the tough part of your story happened very early.
Right.
And some people are going through their tough part right now. So if you would speak to anyone on their journey, specifically, someone who's trying to leave their job and at the same time they're trying to leave their job and trying to get a house at the same time.
Right.
Faith might or might not be as strong. What is it that you would say to that person to help them make their transition?
Just keep the end goal in mind. We're going to be distracted, right? Things are going to happen to get us off course. When you're on track, it's forward moving, is going forward. Just stay the course. And I still believe that even no matter when my back is against the wall or I'm on my back, I just still believe that it's going to work out. I'm just keeping that belief. There was a interview that I had the privilege of being a part of, and it was a police officer that was shot probably 8-9 times, and they asked him, "How did you survive?" And he said, "After the first bullet, I purposed in my mind that I was going to make it out." And that lets you know your mind has the ability to change science. Your mind has the ability to change health. Your mind has the ability to change a deadly situation. So if you stay focused, keep yourself in a survivor's mentality, because they comfort victims, but they give survivors the mic. Right? So if you're going to tell the story, you have to survive. So I took from that, no matter what's happening, no matter if you're injured, no matter if you're bleeding or whatever is going on, if you have in your mindset that I'm going to survive, then after the splash, you can be okay.
They comfort victims, but they give survivors the mic.
Absolutely.
If you need anything else after that, I don't know what else we have to give. So on that note, I'm going to say you guys know what to do to go out and be great.
Right.
You have heard it from the man's mouth himself. And I think your journey definitely speaks to those who are on their journey, whether they're in corporate or not, in a 9-to-5 they like or hate, whether it's life-threatening or not.
Right.
Just some of the values that you've given us definitely can take and be successful with that.
Thank you.
Again, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, peace out.